Hey there! Thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of DanamoBIM. Today I have an awesome episode. We're going to talk about how to create a sheet count from the range of sheets that appear in our sheet list. Today I'm going to be working in Revit 2024 within the sample file. Now, to show you exactly what I'm talking about, I'm actually going to come into the working schedule for the sheet list. Wonderful sample file here. Definitely enjoy the practicality of a lot of the things going on in here, including what we have many seen within our own models, within our own company templates, a sheet sorting parameter. So we are first going to sort our sheets by our sheet sort parameter, then the sheet number, and create a count. I believe there's 48 sheets here within our project. You can see. So we will have 0, 1 out of 48, all the way to 48 out of 48. So the first thing we'll actually need to do is create a parameter here in Revit. Within our schedule, we can do this to essentially populate that value too. So we're going to come into fields. We're going to create a new parameter. In this case, I'm going to create a project parameter. I'm going to go ahead and put a link down below onto how to create a shared parameter. There's definitely benefits there, as you can see here. Revit gives you some information. For simple demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and create a sheet count parameter here, and I want this to be a text parameter. I'll hit OK, hit OK again, maybe move this up to the sheet number next to that, just so that I can see it next to the sheet number there. And now we have a sheet count parameter that takes text value, right? We can type in anything in there, but we're going to have Dynamo populate that for us. So let's go ahead and jump into Dynamo. I have a brand new file open in Dynamo here. And the very first thing, just like a schedule within Revit, is I want to come in and grab the category of sheets. You'll see there that it actually, because I have it on automatic, it automatically grabs the sheets category. So I would like to grab all elements of that category. Now, unlike our schedule, which you can actually see in the background, it has 48 sheets. You'll actually see that this has 55, as we can see there within the watch preview there. 55 sheets. So we need to filter out some sheets that do not appear in our sheet list. There's a few, as you can see, 7 presentation sheets that we want to filter out of our project. So we will come over and grab an element parameter value by name. Our sheets are our element, and our parameter name, as you can see there, if I hover over the input, is looking for a string value. So I'll just double click to create a code block. Double click there within my canvas, and I want the parameter appears in sheet list. Now this is title case. Revit is case sensitive, so we will need to make sure that we have the correct parameter. If you're not seeing 1s and 0s or Boolean values here within our output, we should ensure that we have the correct parameter. To filter this list, I'll need to essentially ask the sheet whether it appears in the sheet list. And that value, if it does appear in the sheet list, is 1, as you can see. So I essentially want to see, does appears in sheet list equal 1? So I'll just come over in my canvas and right click, look for double equal. You can see the first one actually gives a certain tolerance. We don't want a tolerance, we want x equals to y. our X equals to a number. You can see it's actually in blue, so we want a number rather than a string. Put a string in quotations. Number, we don't need quotations. Just type in 1. And once again, because we have it on automatic, we can see true and false values. So we can go ahead and start to filter our sheets by the true and false or Boolean value. So I just want to come in and filter by Boolean mask. Just right click, search for filter. It should come up relatively quickly. So very commonly used node. And we can see we have ones that are in, meaning that they do pass, they are a part of our sheet list, and ones that fail, ones that are not part of our sheet list or appears in sheet list, right? So at this point, we have a perfect little group of nodes here. Sheets that appear in sheet list. So wonderful way for us to be able to diagram out sheets that we're actually going to be working with. Now, once again, we need to start to sort this list, right? So essentially, just like our schedule, right? We've filtered our list to sheets that appear in our sheet list. Now we need to start to sort our sheets based off of their sheet sort parameter value, as well as their sheet number value in that order. Within the Revit project, if I just move this down slightly, because once again I have the working sheet list open within Revit, we can see that based off of discipline depicts our sheet sort value. So general is 0, architectural, maybe architectural site is 40, regular architectural is 70. All of them want the same heading as architectural, so that's why they all have the discipline of architectural. It's fine. And as we can go down, we see that we also have a kitchen. So essentially, we want to not only sort by that value, but then once we've sorted by it, we want to group by it. So to do that, we want to sort by function. This is a little bit of a tricky parameter here. We're going to feed our in list, once again, the sheets that pass, the ones who have an index of true that appears in sheet list equals 1. And our sort function is actually going to be an element get parameter value by name without elements wired to it. You can see that when I have this condition, element dot get parameter value by name, without element, it actually puts out function. And that's my sort function. So I'm going to tell the sort function parameter to be, once again, case sensitive, sheet sort. Now, until I plug this in to my list sort by function node, I'm not going to get very many outputs here, right? Once I wire this up, we can see it will start to organize my sheets based off of their sheet sort. Now, after playing with this, we need to not only do this, because if we sort it by our sheet sort and then by our sheet number, it's going to mess up our sheet sorting, right? As we can see, if I just once again drag this down here, we have A sheets that come after G sheets. So if we only sort by sheet number, it's not going to give us the order that we want, right? Which is exactly why sheet sort, this parameter, exists, right? So that we can create that ordering outside of the sheet number. The sheet number is secondary. So to do that, we actually need to group by function as well. Now, when we look for group, by right-clicking, we can get group by function, and our group function would actually be that same function output, right? So I can actually just use that same output from my element get parameter value by name node into my group by function. And then we can see we actually have Our general sheets, our architectural, which is 040, our architectural at 070, and lastly, we should have our kitchen, just like our schedule, right? We haven't done much different than what our schedule, I know I keep repeating that. So I can go ahead and group this to sheets sorted by sheet sort. Right? And grouped. Sorted / grouped. Now, I know you guys might think, why is she grouping this in front of us? Because it creates such an organized canvas here. That way when I go back to the script later, when I want to standardize this for other people to use, what have you, it's just already organized that way. It's just best practice to do this as you go. Don't wait until the end, right? Do it as you go so that you know what those groups are. You don't have to go back and investigate what the groups are. Now, if I come in and just ask these values without sorting for their sheet number, what we're going to see is that the list is not in order. And the reason that is because you see 101 comes after, or comes before 103. 102 is later in the list, right? Our architectural list is quite out of whack. And the reason this is because it's based off of when the sheet was created. So it's automatically sorting it by element ID, lowest to highest. So the sheet that was created first is going to come up first in the list. The sheet that was created last will come up last in the list. So rather than just getting the sheet number, I need to now also sort my grouped list by sheet number. So once I just came over, I copied the original sort by function grouping, right, with my function and my sort by function by holding control and dragging. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the previous episode in Dynamo Shorts for shortcuts. You'll see I'm using a lot of those today. Double clicking for code blocks, dragging with control to copy, etc. So sorry if I'm moving a little quickly for you. Try to explain as I go here. So if I do this, you'll see nothing comes up. It comes up as null. And the reason that this is because this grouped list is a list of lists. So to get into this secondary tree of lists, I need to tell this input list. If I right click or click on this arrow here, I can use levels. And essentially what that does is it looks into one level of the tree, or at the level 2, right? Rather than this first list, it looks at the secondary list. So then once I do that, if I wire this in to my sheet number, we'll see this is nice and organized, right? It is not only grouped by sheet sort, but it is also then organized by sheet number. Now that I have sorted my sheets in the way that I need to by sheet sort and sheet number, we can start to create the range of values that we want to then apply back to our sheet count, right? The 0, 1 out of 48 all the way to 48 of 48. So what I'm going to want to do here is come over and look for list.count. And I'll want to essentially just inspect the list as to how many elements exist. Now, if I do this, you can see it gives me 4. Once again, as I explained before, what it's doing is it's actually reading the first grouping of the list tree. So you can see there, I have 4 groups because I have 4 sheet sort groupings. So before I count And because I don't want to count the individual groups, I don't want 9 of my general, I want a total value. What I'm actually going to do is flatten my list of sheets before I count them. So I'm going to come up, just look for flatten. This list can then be flattened. I don't need an amount. It will automatically flatten the way I need it to. And we'll then see that I get one single list of 48 sheets, right? Rather than a list of lists, I only have one list. So if I come in and I count this list, I now have 48, right? The exact number that I need. Once again, I'm just going to go ahead and group this. This sorts by sheet number. Making myself super organized here as I go. So, got my sheet number sort all flattened. So this is essentially the list that I want to use to create my range. We can keep this wired if we wanted to just understand how our sheets are going to be numbered back to that list. I love to create these types of things here within gray groups. This actually is kind of what I use as a reporting group. So I'll call it that. So reporting sheets to be counted / updated. So to create a range from this count, just simply as that, a range node that creates a sequence of numbers in a given range. So in this case, this would be where we want to end, 48. We want to start at 1 and step by 1. So we go 1, 2, 3, and a value of 1. So you can see I should get 1 through 48. Now, it's always good practice that we carry the same number of characters. So rather than feeding this in 1 through 9, which is one single character, I'm going to actually what's referred to as pad these single characters. I'm going to pad them with an additional character of 0 so that all of the values that I feed in are 2 values to the range. Once again, just good sorting parameter value types of habits to build, right? Same thing with our sheets. We wouldn't have A1, A2, A3. We would have A01 or A001, right? If we have a sheet set big enough to accommodate that many sheets. So what we're going to do is exactly that, what I referred to as pad. And you can see we actually have the ability to pad left or pad right. We want to pad left a string value. Now this is where it gets a little bit complicated because if I just feed this list in, these are numbers. Once again, they are blue, so they are number values. To convert the number value to a string from object. This will take any object, a point, a number, and make it into a string. So you can see there, no longer blue, it's orange, which indicates a string value. So this will be the string that I want to pad. The length that I want to be is an integer that I'm going to input there. You can see if I hover over the input, it tells me that it wants an int, an integer. An integer is a number, so I can come in and tell it that I want it to be 2 characters with no quotations around it. However, the pad characters is looking for a string. You can see the default value is actually blank. So we want to make this value a string, so I'm going to put it in quotations, of 0. So our new length is 2. Our pad characters is 0. And so if we come in, we can see all of those first characters, 1 through 9, are now padded with a single 0. So we have 0, 1, all the way down to 48. Now, one kind of smart thing to probably do here is, rather than actually giving it a length, is asking how many characters are in the count, right? That way, if I have 100, it will pad it with 2 zeros. If I have 1,000, goodness, I hope I don't have 1,000 sheets. But if I do, then it will pad it with 3 zeros, right? And all of the subsequent sheets that don't have that amount of characters will get padded as well. So 100 would get a 0, etc., right? So if I ask this count how many characters it has, string inspect, we can actually ask the length. So I could also type in length, and it will look for the amount of string characters. Now, once again, this is failing because I'm feeding in a number. I'm just going to copy over by hovering and holding Control, dragging that over, and getting a string from my count. We can then see that this has 2. It's a number in blue, so I can feed that in, right? So if it was 3, it would automatically. So this is just a smarter way to do this. This way, when I do have a project that isn't 2 characters, it will automatically identify that and fill in as necessary. Once again, just a different way to program it. Neither is wrong necessarily. This is just a little bit smarter, builds in some of that logic. Just a different way of doing things, right? So now that I have this string value, and this is actually somewhat important because I can use this in the concatenation that I want to create. I want to have 01 over 48, 02 over 48, etc. So what I want to do is I want to actually add 3 values. My new padded string, a slash, and 48, right? However many sheets I have. So I get that count value. Now, if I just use the plus, it only gives me 2 inputs. So I can kind of do this in 2 phases if I want. I can say add a slash to 48. It's just 2 string values. And you can see it concatenates a slash with my total count value in a string. And then I can essentially say add my padded string with my concatenated value, right? So then I have 01 through 48 over 48. Okay, this is one way to do it. We could also use a code block. I'll talk about that in a future episode and all of the advantages and things that you can do with code blocks, or just some of them. There's tons of things that you can do with code block. So now that I have my values, this is once again a great time to go ahead and create a group, right? We'll create a group and we'll call this our sheet range values. So now I know these are the values that I want to plug in to that parameter that I created, my sheet count. And before I set the values back to the elements, which are the sheets, right? These guys here. What I probably want to do is go ahead and switch this over to manual and save, right? So I'm going to just come up and do a file, save as, save this as I need it to. Call this as a final, so we did it together. And I can then go ahead and look for element.set parameter by name. So rather than finding or getting a parameter value by name, we want to set a value to these elements, our flattened list of elements, with the value of our range that we've created all the way over here in this group here. And the parameter that we want to input, I'm actually going to use a string because a string value, unlike a code block, can actually be used as if I right-click an input. So this is going to tell my user, if looking at it in Dynamo Player, what parameters, a specify parameter to update with count/range. And in our case, we have the parameter sheet count. You could, of course, copy it from your schedule. We will need it to match exactly, right? Case sensitive and all of that. So once I plug this in, I can then run this script, and my sheet count should automatically populate in the same order as my working sheet list. Because once again, we've already organized our Dynamo sheets, or our Revit sheets in Dynamo, to organize in the same exact way, right? We filtered out any sheets that don't appear in the sheet list. We grouped it by the sheet sort after we sorted it by sheet sort. And then within those groups, we sorted it by sheet number. Flattened the list, counted them, created a range, set that back to sheet count. Now, of course, this script could be run every time that we add or remove a sheet. We change the sheet numbers and we want to change the order. We can, of course, rerun it. And that's the beauty, of course, of an automation. As a bonus, I'm going to go ahead and update some of the reporting information that we're getting here from our output, if you will. So once again, if our user is within Dynamo Player, they'll get some additional information as to what actually changed. So to do that, I'm actually going to grab my sheet number values, my range values, as well as the sheets themselves. And I'm going to use Monocle to create a list. The great thing about this is that I don't have to go in and plug in all those inputs, right? Once again, this is a shortcut I discussed within our Dynamo shortcuts, so make sure that if you have not already, you check that out. Now what this does, if I run this, once again, because it's on manual, is it creates a list of lists, right? It's a list of my sheet range, my sheets themselves, the elements, and the sheet number. Now I need to transpose this list. So list.transpose. And essentially what this will do is it will take all of the element or item zeros and put those in a group together. All of the item 1 values and put those together, etc. I do this quite a bit with my output values so that once again, the user is seeing that this sheet with this number is going to be counted in this way. Now with watch nodes, I can right click, tell it to be an output, and I'll just say sheets counted /updated. Add this over to my grouping for reporting. This will definitely just once again be something that I want my user to be able to see, whether they're in Dynamo or Dynamo Player. So once again, just always thinking about what it is that I want to deliver to my user, what it is that I want them to be able to see in the environment. Typically within my inputs, I group those within pink, let my user know that this is actually an input value. And anything that's doing something or creating a transaction within Revit, I change to orange, right? And I say updating sheets, right, with the actual range value. So once again, this is just good practice, beautifully organized. If I open up this script, or if I would like to share this script, use this in Dynamo Player, it's good for me to go. I went ahead and cleared out the sheet count parameter and opened the script here, sheets range from count, ensured that the parameter is accurate, and run the script. And we can see that Dynamo Player automatically does that for us and provides a wonderful output. Thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of Dynamo Shorts on DanamoBIM. Make sure you like and subscribe to ensure you get information on the latest episodes. And here's a message from our sponsors. Thanks again. Need help with Dynamo workflows you've seen on DanamoBIM or any other Dynamo training or assistance? Our sponsor, BIMXT Network, has you covered. Send an email with your request as well as your contact information to info@cadmicrosystems.com. In addition, BIMXT Network holds meetings to bring together bright, curious, engaging people across various disciplines and countries to exchange design and construction technology ideas. BIMXT Network hosts presentations virtually through the online platform as well as in person at locations along the East Coast. For information about the BIMXT Network, please make sure you go to LinkedIn and search for the BIMXT Network group. By joining this group, you'll get information about upcoming meetings, information about previous meetings, including links to the recordings of those meetings, as well as any information about meetings that could be happening near you.